The wonders of many sunsets remain in my heart. I have left my home, and now a starry roof is enough. How does one render a moment of sunset? One must not ask for another sunrise. From the lake, the old lady loon calls for me. An old friend approaches and tells me it is time to light my lantern. I only ask of you that you collect and keep my poems, my most precious treasure. Thank you for joining me today to celebrate the life and poetry of William A. Emboden. William was a friend and a mentor. He was a teacher of botany at Cal State Northridge. He was a renowned ethnobotanist, writer, editor, lecturer, artist, and poet. He was a true Renaissance man in every meaning of the word. He lectured around the world on subjects in science and art. He wrote 7 books, co-authored 2 others, and was published in some 250 publications. And I had the pleasure of meeting William in 2002, but it wasn't until 2010 that I got to know him and his partner Tony a bit better. In 2012, William asked me to help him to transcribe a play that he wrote for the opening of the West Hollywood Library about one of his friends, Jean Cocteau, who was a personal hero of mine. For the last 4 to 5 years of William's life, I would meet up with him regularly to transcribe thousands of pages of handwritten poetry, manuscripts, plays. It was something that kept William going during his final stages of life as he was battling with cancer. And it was just wonderful to hear him discuss stories. We would sit across from each other in his living room on matching pairs of sofas like this. And after his death, his partner Tony gave me one of those sofas, which was in need of some repair. And while I was reupholstering it, I just loved the skeletal look of this image, and so created this piece as a tribute to him and the idea of mentorship and passing along legacy through other means, through these storytellings. He loved to tell me about his mentor, who was Kate Steinitz, who you may know as the Mama of Dada. She was also associated at UCLA when he was getting his doctorate there and working closely with the Da Vinci Codex. And he worked very closely with her and said it was like a Harold and Maude type of friendship. Emboden would go on to write the book Leonardo da Vinci on Plants and Gardens, which I think is one of his most popular books to date. About a poet. I struggled to write that which takes a man 20 years to unearth. Transforming fiction into poetry is onerous. But a poem can triumph fiction with careful crafting. One must just allow one's demons to have its say. One should not interfere with one's demons. This is why some of his poems have ragged edges. They are torn out of his mind, shaken out by his demons. Lovely poems are dead and have no demons. Revision, therefore, becomes so very important, as poems may not age well. First versions seldom sing or speak their truths clearly. Every poem presents itself to the poet-receiver. In it, there are no absolutes, only pure expression. The poet must marry his poems. If later he must kill it, so be it. The poetry of a youth seldom satisfies in age, but may well live a luminous life after his death. Poems will order themselves in time. They need no immediate chronology. Each poem will find its proper moment, place, and circumstance. We know little of this poet's life other than that which exists in his poems. Do not ask if his poems are true. By definition, all of poetry is truth. I have known this poet. He still lights the line of my pen. Poets dream. If poetry be art, I am not swift at it. I adore it and pay attention to my words, phrases, and context. But some days it comes so slowly. That composition begins to meander. It tears the very heart of me, leaving me soulless. I have need of mornings. My mind wanders as the day gets darker and becomes dull. A rain begins. It becomes a blowing gale. I look out the window and listen to the exquisite sounds. I should prefer to write of a handsome boy stretched out occupying my Persian carpet, with his bodily flesh as fine as it is tired from gymnastics. His muscles are fine. What a handsome God-descended lad. His bodily contortions distract me. I return to my art of poetry, knowing that this never really happened. He is resting from his toil, and I from mine. So among the many things that William loved to do, aside from writing poems, was to paint. And in fact, tucked away in this installation, if you'd like to look later, is a book of William's paintings that he published. My paintings as poems and music. No, I cannot paint by chance. Nothing significant happens by chance. Chance is allied to infinity, a concept that none can perceive, not even mathematicians. When I paint, I hold my breath. Involuntary glyphs appear, leaving me dizzy but satisfied. Heavy breathing follows. I have written my poem. I can hear my music. My language is new, as are the tones. My medium is pigment. Yes, there is music behind all of this. My own music pouring out of me. It feels wonderful. And yet I return, a twist of phrase in acrylic, a comma of coloration, the stave, my brush for accents. Fate? No, for success favors those with ideas. Happenstance? No, organized subliminal thought. The music of the spheres is real as my own, all in a mosaic of Sanskrit, Aramaic, ancient Greek. Voila! A new era has erupted. Creation. Poetry is not the information of secrets dead. It is living words united. In patterns not before expressed, ideas new to us, even to the poet. These are the words that both dance and sing, mourn and burst forth in rage, words restored to a place they never occupied, words that sometimes do the poet's bidding, made of living flesh and feces, bone and ashes, skin and hair, all things human. We live in an empty silence, awaiting the coming of words. We catch a few and absorb them, then hope for an eternal drumming to which our words may march. A tune unexpected in timbre. Do these words ever deceive us? Of course they do. It is the curse of all poetry, the darkness rumbling under the beat of wings, an agonizing fear. Have I said it before, I wonder? Are they words of others? We must believe that all is new, knowing that we can never own our poetry. Proceeding in ignorance, we hope to arrive where we have never been. And it is that which astonishes us. So William asks, are they the words of others? And have I said it before? And having typed up hundreds of his poems, I can see that he was dealing and struggling with all of these themes, and he had some days that were better than others, and some days where his poetry almost seemed so similar to other poets that he and I both admired and loved. But it was that writing, the daily practice of poetry that he said kept him going and gave him a mission to each day continue through the pain that he was dealing with. One of his favorite poets was that of Constantine P. Cavafy, a Greek poet who lived in Alexandria, Egypt in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And it was Cavafy in which I got to know William and his partner Tony much better. In 2010, Tony, who is an art curator and exhibitionist, had an exhibition called My Cavafy, which was based on the poetry of Cavafy, and it was a photography exhibit of Stathis Orphanos, who was a dear friend of William and Tony's. And Stathis, if you haven't heard of him, was a photographer and a publisher of fine art books. With his partner, Ralph Sylvester, they founded the company Sylvester and Orphanos. Their first book was a deluxe edition of Christopher Isherwood's book, Christopher and His Kind, illustrated with original art by Don Baccardi. And along with those two gentlemen, Stathis took hundreds of portraits of luminary figures like David Hockney, Maxwell Caulfield, Clive Barker, Horst P. Horst, George Cukor, Gavin Lambert, Norman Mailer, John Updike, Gore Vidal, the list goes on. And so it is partly that idea of sharing stories and sharing friendships with a mentor and hearing about these people that, you know, the mind opens with imagination. And one of William's favorite things was to write poems to his friends and loved ones. Stathis Orphanos. He calls himself Samian, of or relating to the Greek isle of Samos. And that he is, but more. For he brings with him the magical box that captures souls, his third eye of glass, a lens to turn the world upside down and in a moment capture a spirit. He burns images onto paper, poets, actors, and ordinary figures no longer ordinary in his hands. Their essence cannot escape. While still a youth or in old age, the thou of that is there. He is the lad who wandered among books and there fell in love. Words were always dear to him, like the palpable flesh of youth that he came to know so well. He is the soil of all Greece, and especially her islands. He is the one who preserved her. All of the athletes that came to be photographed, their muscled youth embalmed on film. They will forever be reborn each century as gods unaware. For that third eye of glass has given them immortality, sapient immortality. It was my sublime pleasure one day as I'm typing and flipped the other page to find that William had written several poems about myself or alluded to me. And so here is one of those. The Path Created by Jason. The new year came and I felt bereft of all creative powers, like a change of season which steals one from another. Because you made a request of me, I was again filled with power. My heart beat with strength as my hand guided my pen. You asked me for my words. You valued them, and I had not known what powers come from that recognition. Being that shaft of light, the J sun reflected on a path from that solar orb to the sea. The light does not reach land that my sight perceives, but I am assured in the stretch between the golden ending in the sea and my position on the shore, it will go on. My muse. Everyone should have a muse of their very own, one who loves and inspires unthinkable thoughts. A muse to turn for words when poetry resists. Muse of dark nights that can happen in the day's light. A muse of one's own can change the moon into sun. Within your mind, carried at all times, invisible but to you, making itself known at strange times, moving the land in a cursive script to say those things you cannot say or will not say. Ideas that are your own given over, no logic or systematic thought. More importantly, expressing the unknowable, creating the unthinkable. Your muse is free from your instruction. It cannot suffer the whim of control. Mercurial, it comes and goes. For it does not belong in your time. You have invented your determined hours. They mean nothing to your muse. Why do you think it is at this hour and at this place you are now writing? No, not merely writing, but taking divine dictation. It is your muse seating your mind, moving your arm and wrist. Do you not know that these words do not belong to you? They are not your thoughts. Assuming their own path they walk, and you follow. The muse is life's great miracle, and yet you have never met, even though it is in the recesses of your mind. Forget your expectations, for the words that you claim will be given to you. At those times least expected, follow. I think from observing William's poetry that his greatest muse, based on the number of poems that he wrote for her, was that of his beloved dog, Tulip. Second was that of his lifelong partner and love, Tony. I first, as I said, met Tony and William in 2002. At that time, I was working at the LGBT Center in Los Angeles as the production manager. I would assist with theatrical productions and also help to hang and install artwork. And that is where I worked under mentorship of the head curator, Mark Aranyaga, and learned to love curating and creating exhibitions. So it was at an art opening that William and Tony came to visit. William remembers meeting me in 2002 because I had just purchased this crazy hat that I found that reminded me of Quentin Crisp at the Out of the Closet store. And William always loved, he commented on how funny it was to see me wearing this hat. So, art opening. When people gather for art, it is lovely. Conversation becomes increasingly intense. A cacophony of intellect and florid imagination. There, one gentleman stands wrapped in observation, and he in time is observed by she, who senses a certain harmony between these two. How novel to see strangers come together, sharing ideas as if it were bread, two becoming one. The cities meet and art speak begins. Words that have no real meaning are given artificial wings or weights, neither belonging to the work in question. Little do they know, the artist stands by. He smiles, knowing, faintly amused by their conversation. Then the lady with hair like a broad-brimmed hat, the voice and face of an eagle declaims, "My daughter could do that." If her daughter could, she would have. But of course, she didn't, can't, and won't. The humble, balding little man has stood before this painting now for an hour. He is enraptured in a moment of adoration and tribute. He is drinking in its pleasure. Two gay gentlemen and their lady friends are all fingers pointing, hands drooping at the wrists. They seem to be informed, and one is heard to say, "We have 3 of his works in our Malibu home." The one tall, strange youth in a straw hat wanders as though lost, until a gentleman offers his hand and generates a frightened smile. How curious a crowd, what strange ebbing and flowing, strange dresses and informal wear, torn jeans and hand-painted shirts, knowing not that they are, for me, the exhibition. Art now. Our obligation is to leave tangible signs that we were here, evidence that we created, that we understood that which went before and believed in that which is yet to come. We must leave art as our one common language. We must propagate and transport knowledge in all that we create, enriching all, impoverishing nothing. Exciting and fascinating in its temporality. Building upon cultures past, going forward, these must be the footsteps that we leave, not just the entertainments of our times. We shall show that we extended a way of creating, showing that we too had visions. There is always a future in imagination. These are those things yet deep and undiscovered. They will be tangible signs of our passage here. Will the door to the future open and close? When open, shall we see a bright horizon? In this we must believe, as it is our motivation and driving force. When will we see a marriage of past and future, of forms, materials, techniques that yet await us? We must not lose the spiritual in our art, or our works will be mere reason alone. We must use all of our sensations, even though we know that the present is ephemeral and the past exists only in our arts. Remember, it is ours, and all that we created changes. Self-portrait and eulogy. I don't know how to be natural. I was born a chameleon. My colors change constantly, and my eye is on the fly. It is a joy to be untamed. and also to live one's own convictions. It is the giver of freedom, assuring that no time or place is real. I am a wanderer in my mind. The frontiers are boundless, and the vistas, spectacular. My life is an exotic fable. I have a taste for risk-taking, and I detest routine. Life must be curious, and death, a splendid confrontation. I don't know my exact prognosis, other than I am destined to be transcendent. Continuing onward through numerous miracles, life, that great feast. Some think of me as eccentric. They are so correct. I would not have it otherwise. Yet my ideas are very clear. I am a disciplined savage, quietly attacking without revealing. Every thought is a fiery encounter, a sequence of conflicting emotions. I have a passion for painting, sculpture, music, and movement. The garden of life is where passions are cultivated. Plants grow, flower, wither, and die. It is the grand ordering of all things. When I die, tell them I am in absentia, changing costumes. For my return will be swift. I am too rebellious to stay away. A path through life. The color of love, and then the color of oblivion. Between the two, the thing called life. I own my aged face with pride, different every day. A quiet visage, but oh so telling. Those eyes, pale and watery, glisten still in this late age, a certain happiness behind them. I have great sorrow for those who weep at dawn. They are the visions of pain and sorrow. Within me death grows, as does acceptance. I have found a certain sweetness in life of late. Some find it incomprehensible. Perhaps it is my pursuit of beauty within. Those with blank faces have a mechanical gait with no expression. I like to think of my crooked walk as a kind of dance. Every street side must have a garden that I plant. As I pass through, I pluck the weeds so that flowers may flourish. No one weeps over pain if and when they already own another world. For a time. I know that you wish to hear me laugh, but it is not always possible. There are those who recently lost, and they who must yet suffer. Thus this shall ever be. So I must pull myself together and behave as one filled with happiness. It is not so very difficult. Forgetting grief and pain, we must all endure making another happy with laughter. It's little enough to ask of me. Life has been kind for over 8 decades. So there is much to repay. The joy inherent in age is very special. Much that has been given to me will soon disappear, both the joy and the pain. So why not smile for another? Why not laughter given freely? For it implies a little pleasure. As this life unfolds, it is appropriate to share happiness through laughter. How contagious it is. Each of us is uplifted in a different way. Pain disappears for a time. We have together created a small space which is bright and beautiful. True, it is fleeting, yet one in which we find ourselves fulfilled. I try to unite day and night, summer and lost spring, tides of broken seas, waves in conflict. This moment and timeless moments have arrived where I started. Is this life's pattern? Spoken in the loud waterfall and in the silence of it all, extracting the exact words, making them dance together, sing together. This is not a simple calling. I work these words out of stone. Stones and earth remember. Do not find them to be illegible. Hold on to every pebble and seek its rhyming voices, for each is a part of earth's soul, forged by fire, loved by water. Holding the stone, I understand the union of millions of years. And I have no need to seek union in it. All has been accomplished. Asked about my death poem, I replied, any of these poems that I have given to you may be my death poem. It is a vain thing to write so many death poems. I have done so as a transgression. These poems are to pay for my entrance. I imagined that some fine final words would be, the party is over. I am sure that my death is a mistake, for a poet of my stature would not be so suddenly removed, said the imperious monk. Do not speculate on any paradise, for it was never promised you. For 80 years, the drop of dew persisted at the tip of the grass leaf and then disappeared, as did the poet. I have passed the final scene, and now I must make new preparations. Our lives are like fireflies. We light up brilliantly and as easily as our light fades and goes out. Why seek the meaning of life when it is, and nothing more? On a long journey punctuated by grave illness, I am at last prepared. These are the final moments of my life, and I have no laments. I shall end, but I ask that you allow my poetry to survive. When I have passed, go to the shrine. Hit the gong once and clap 3 times. Wish my soul a safe journey. Safe journey, William.